Ontario imposes a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the U.S. How will this decision affect both countries? Ontario Premier Doug Ford made a surprising announcement, imposing a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the United States. This move has sparked immediate reactions in both countries, as it is seen as a direct response to the recent tariffs placed on Canadian products by U.S. President Donald Trump. Although Ford had hinted at this possibility in previous days, the speed of its implementation is striking, especially since the decision comes just after Trump announced a pause on some tariffs, particularly those affecting the automotive industry. A clear message from Ontario. This measure appears to go beyond economic considerations. It sends a strong political message. Ontario, a key supplier of energy to several U.S. states, is making its dissatisfaction with Trump's trade policies clear. In fact, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau recently stated that the temporary pause on tariffs was not enough, and that a full repeal was necessary to restore normal trade relations between the two countries. With this decision, Ontario is taking the initiative in the trade dispute with the U.S., in contrast to Mexico's strategy of pursuing discreet negotiations in its own tariff conflict with Washington. Canada, an energy giant with a strategic lever. Canada is the largest energy supplier to the U.S., providing oil, natural gas, and electricity. The two countries share a highly integrated energy network that has historically ensured stability for both sides, energy security for the U.S. and a steady demand for Canadian exporters. Here are some key facts about energy trade between the two nations. In 2022, U.S. Canada energy trade hit a record $190 billion, surpassing the previous high of $178 billion in 2008. In 2023, Canada exported $97.1 billion worth of crude oil to the U.S., with Alberta being the top producing province. Canada has a positive trade balance in electricity, exporting far more than it imports from the U.S. Quebec is the largest electricity exporter, selling approximately 35.6 terawatt-hours to the U.S. in 2022. Major projects like the Champlain-Hudson Power Express, a 603-kilometer transmission line, aim to deepen this relationship by supplying nearly 20% of New York City's electricity needs from Quebec. On a broader scale, Canada enjoys a favorable trade balance with the U.S. In 2023, it exported $410 billion in goods while importing $269 billion. However, much of Canada's exports consist of energy and minerals, both critical to U.S. industry. How will this measure affect the U.S.? The 25% surcharge on electricity exported from Ontario will directly impact around 1.5 million Americans in Minnesota, New York, and Michigan, who may face higher electricity bills. Since many regions rely on Canadian hydroelectric power, this decision could generate domestic political pressure in the U.S. for the Trump administration to reconsider its tariff stance. While this measure currently applies only to Ontario, Premier Ford has urged other provinces to take similar actions. In the electricity sector, Quebec is the largest player, and its involvement in a coordinated strategy could amplify the impact on the U.S. Alberta, the other key player. In oil and gas, Alberta is central. It exports approximately 4 million barrels of crude oil per day to the U.S. and is Canada's top natural gas producer. However, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has so far rejected the idea of restricting energy exports, preferring to avoid escalating the trade conflict. That said, if tensions rise, Alberta may reconsider its stance. The province also has the potential to increase oil exports by 2 million barrels per day through infrastructure expansion. Premier Smith has also emphasized the need to diversify markets, exploring new trade opportunities with Spain and India to reduce dependence on the U.S. What's next for Canada-U.S. trade relations? Ford's decision could mark the beginning of a new phase in trade relations between the two nations. If more Canadian provinces follow suit, the U.S. might be forced to reconsider its trade policies toward Canada. In the short term, the impact will be felt in higher electricity costs for American consumers, while in the long term, this move could lead to further retaliation and greater uncertainty in markets. The deep energy interdependence between Canada and the U.S. makes it difficult for either side to sustain a prolonged conflict. However, Ontario's move demonstrates that Canada is unwilling to passively accept trade barriers imposed by Washington. What do you think about Premier Ford's decision? Should other provinces follow Ontario's lead? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more updates on this and other key global issues.